What is primarily remembered as the National Television Championship was an on-again, off-again secondary title in the Georgia territory of the National Wrestling Alliance through most of the 1970s and 1980s. Despite a somewhat peculiar history, some of the biggest names in pro wrestling at the time held the belt. We'll take a look at all of the champions through every incarnation of the title, from its origins in the late 1960s to the height of its notoriety in the early and mid-1980s. Like other videos of this kind on this channel, it's just a glorified list, not a deep dive into every title reign, but we will slow down and take a look at some interesting points along the way. I will point out the great majority of title changes happened in Atlanta. I normally like to give the location for every title change, but that would get incredibly repetitive with this title. So unless I point out otherwise, the title change happened in Atlanta. It's a relatively long list with a lot of noteworthy stories, so let's get into it. And no, Ric Flair didn't hold this one either. If you know, you know. Originally, the title was called the NWA Georgia Television Championship, and the title history began with an 8-man tournament in Atlanta. Joe Scarpa defeated Assassin No. 2 in the tournament final to become the first Georgia Television Champion on November 22, 1969. Most fans may be more familiar with Scarpa by the name Chief J. Strongbow. Scarpa took the title in the 1970 with a 42-day title reign, losing it to a freshly turned heel Nick Bockwinkel on January 3rd. The future AWA World Champion held the belt 63 days before losing it to El Mongol on March 7, 1970. Mongol's reign would officially be recognized at 3 days before officials stepped in to strip him of the title, claiming he defeated Bockwinkel by using an illegal karate blow. I'm not exactly sure what an illegal karate blow is, but apparently you couldn't do it in Georgia in 1970. The title remained vacant until a rematch between Mongol and Bockwinkel took place on March 20th, where Nick Bockwinkel became the first wrestler to hold the title more than once. Bockwinkel's second term with the belt lasted 22 days before he dropped the belt to former ally Assassin No. 2, but there was some chicanery involved. Late in the match, Assassin No. 1 slipped into the ring to replace a tired Assassin No. 2, and it was actually No. 1 that pinned Bockwinkel for the title. For some reason, it took 42 days for officials to strip Assassin No. 2 of the title, with the championship being vacated on May 23, 1970, and the Assassins being suspended. On June 15, 1970, Nick Bockwinkel defeated Joe Scarpa in a top contenders match to crown a new Georgia TV champion, meaning Bockwinkel entered his third reign with the belt without ever legitimately losing it. Bockwinkel's final run with the Georgia TV Championship ending with a title loss to Bobby Shane on August 15th. Shane dropped the belt to Luke Graham on December 19, 1970. Graham had a nice run with the title as well, taking the belt into 1971 before losing it to Klondike Bill on March 20th. Bill set a new record for the longest run with the belt, holding it 203 days until a feud with Big Bad John culminated with Bill losing the title on October 9th. Big Bad John only held the belt 6 days before he lost it to Ray Gunkle on October 15, 1971. A veteran with more than 20 years of experience in the ring, Gunkle had won every single and tag championship recognized in the Georgia territory, not including the NWA World title. Gunkle also happened to be a part owner of the Georgia territory and headed up booking, and was notably the one that moved TV tapings to WTCG in Atlanta, what would become WTBS. Unfortunately, the Georgia Television Championship would be his last title. On August 1, 1972, with his title reign at 291 days, a record that was never broken, Gunkle faced Ox Baker in a match in Savannah, Georgia. Prior to the match, it said Gunkle told Baker to lay him in. In other words, they were going to work stiff in that match. Baker's finishing maneuver was the heart punch, where he hit his opponent in the chest. Per Gunkle's instructions, Baker hit him hard. Despite taking the finishing maneuver, Gunkle overcame it and ended up winning the match. At first, everything seemed fine. Gunkle showered before sitting in the locker room next to promoter Aaron Newman to go over the night's receipts. Suddenly, Gunkle fell from his chair onto the floor, and in seconds, he was dead. An autopsy showed he suffered from undiagnosed arteriosclerosis, but what killed him was a small hematoma that formed from the punch. The hematoma swelled and formed a blood clot that went to his heart. Not only had Georgia wrestling lost a long-time and popular figure, but the aftermath saw his widow Ann in a power struggle with a group headed up by Buddy Fuller, Eddie Graham, Lester Welch, and Paul Jones for control of the Georgia Territory. Ann started her own competing promotion, but with the power of the NWA behind the other group and new management and Bill Watts and Jim Barnett, the struggle ended after 2 years when Ann went out of business. Meanwhile, out of respect to Ray, the NWA deactivated the Georgia Television Championship rather than holding a tournament to crown a new one. The title would not exist at all until long after the battle with Ann Gunkle's new promotion was over. The date and location is not clear, but at least sometime around February 1st, 1977, Black Atlas, who shortly thereafter would return to the name Tony Atlas, won a tournament final against Ole Anderson to win the reactivated Georgia TV title. The young Atlas was in the midst of a feud with Abdullah the Butcher at the time, and after only about 10 days lost the TV title to the Madman from Sudan on February 11th. Abdullah the Butcher held a lot of titles in his career, but rarely a prominent title in a major promotion. Butcher usually held things like the Brass Knuckles Championship or various titles in Puerto Rico or smaller promotions in the U.S. This was mostly because Butcher was something of a traveling act, never staying in one territory for very long. Because of this, there has been some confusion over part of the lineage of the Georgia Television Championship. Most sources list Abdullah losing the TV championship to Thunderbolt Patterson, usually listing the date of the title change as April 1st. The French Angel is then listed as beating Patterson for the belt on or around May 5th, then dropping the title back to Patterson on May 27th. But on April 1st, 1977, on a card at Municipal Auditorium in Atlanta, Thunderbolt Patterson defeated Lars Anderson, while the French Angel tagged with Abdul Zattar in a loss to Mr. Wrestling 1 and 2. No title matches were involved, and Abdullah the Butcher wasn't even on the card. It was also around this time Abdullah had made appearances in Florida, Memphis, and Detroit before leaving for a tour of Japan on April 8th. In another scenario that proves pro wrestling is a little different than other things, it's tough to say exactly what happened. I couldn't find any title defenses by Patterson during this time. Also couldn't find where the French Angel won the title or had any title defenses, but he did enter a feud with Patterson and had been subbing for Abdullah on other cards. It's likely the Butcher left the territory without notice, and the powers that be simply handed the belt to his tag team partner, the French Angel. So, unofficially, the French Angel becomes the TV champion sometime in April or May, then drops the belt to Thunderbolt Patterson on May 27th at the Omni in a lights-out match with police surrounding the ring. Don't get too comfortable. The confusion isn't over. Patterson's last recorded defense during his run with the title was on July 5th, 1977, taking a disqualification win over Ole Anderson during their famous feud. Some sources say Patterson simply left the territory temporarily, while others say Patterson lost a loser leaves town match. The last match I could find before his departure was a loss to Ole Anderson at a small card in a high school gym in Rome, Georgia. I seriously doubt that was a loser leaves town match, and I can't find any record of one anywhere else. It's possible Patterson left for personal reasons, and he did have quite the reputation for butting heads with the front office. Patterson did come back in the middle of August and appeared on a few cards over the next few weeks, but was completely gone from the territory by September. Evidently, the promotion just quietly vacated the title sometime after July 5th, followed by Patterson's full departure 2 months later. The title remained vacant until a tournament on December 9, 1977, that saw Bob Armstrong defeat Jacques Goulet in the final to be crowned a new television champion. Armstrong had a run of 63 days, dropping the belt to Ole Anderson on February 10, 1978. In March, Thunderbolt Patterson re-entered the territory, and weird stuff started happening again. On May 2, 1978, Thunderbolt Patterson did defeat Ole Anderson for the Georgia TV title in Macon, Georgia. This marked the first time the title changed hands anywhere other than Atlanta, or at least that's what everyone in Macon, Georgia came away thinking. Again, it's pro wrestling being pro wrestling. Anderson and Patterson actually did this same match 3 times, with Anderson going in as champion and Patterson as challenger in Macon on May 2nd, Augusta, Georgia on May 8th, and in Atlanta on May 12th. All this happened before they announced anything on television, and fans were just told the title changed hands without any elaboration. Fans in all three venues came away thinking they had seen the title change, which technically they did. For our purposes here, we will recognize the first one since it was the first one, and declare it the first Georgia Television Championship title change outside Atlanta. Again, don't get comfortable. When Patterson's title run ended is unclear. Patterson's last recorded defense was on January 30th, 1979 in Macon, with a win over Luke Graham. Sometime after that, Ole Anderson took the TV title, but there are no records of a title match between the two. They did have a handcuff match on February 7th in Columbus, but that was a non-title match, and Patterson was the winner. Ole Anderson simply showed up at a February 17, 1979 TV taping with the belt. Patterson was well known for stirring the pot behind the scenes, bringing lawsuits and casting out accusations of racism at the powers that be. Years before Jesse Ventura tried to start a union in the WWF, Patterson tried to start one in the NWA. It's entirely possible the title change was a spur-of-the-moment decision, and they literally handed Anderson the belt on the day of the TV taping. So, we'll do as some other sources have done and recognize Patterson's final run with the TV title at 287 days, the second longest in the history of the belt. Ole Anderson becomes the TV champion on February 13, 1979, because why not? We do have some normalcy for a little while after that, with Bob Armstrong regaining the title on April 25, 1979, in Columbus. Armstrong only held the belt for 19 days before dropping it to Blackjack Lanza in Augusta on May 14th. Ray Candy ended Lanza's run at 81 days, winning the belt on August 3rd and holding it for 47 days before dropping it to Ernie Ladd on September 19th. Ladd held the title into November 1979 when he lost it to Stan Hansen on November 2nd. Hansen held the championship for all of 1 day before losing it to Killer Carl Cox. Cox held the belt for 27 days, losing it to Ray Candy, who checked in for his second run on November 30th, 1979. Candy also had a short run, losing the belt 8 days later to Austin Idol on December 8th. Idol not only took the title into 1980, but into a new name. After Idol's win on December 8th, the title's name was changed from the NWA Georgia Television Championship to the NWA National Television Championship. This was to recognize the wider reach the Georgia territory was making due to the newly redubbed WTBS being added to cable systems across the country. Idol's run abruptly ended at 28 days when he lost the title to Steve Travis on January 5, 1980 on television. However, Travis dropped the title back to Idol a week later on January 12, 1980, also on television. Idol entered into a long feud with Kevin Sullivan that saw the TV title at the center of attention. Sullivan ended Idol's run at just 15 days, winning the belt on January 27th. Sullivan held the title just under a month, dropping the belt back to Austin Idol on February 21st. Just 2 days later, the belt was out of the Idol versus Sullivan feud when Tommy Rich won the belt on February 23rd. A top contender for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship held by Harley Race at the time, Rich was immensely popular in the Georgia territory. With WTBS reaching a wider audience, that popularity was growing by the week. Having Rich as the television champion and appearing weekly on TV was not only a boost to ratings, but a boost to Rich's career. At that time, getting a shot at the world title was a special moment in a wrestler's career, and was presented to fans as such. After 71 days as national television champion, Rich surrendered the title to concentrate on the title match with world champion Harley Race. For the record, Rich would not win the world title in 1980, but he did get a 4-day run with the NWA World title in April of 1981. The National TV Championship was left vacant through most of the summer of 1980. On August 22, 1980, a tournament was held to crown a new champion, with rookie Terry Taylor besting veterans Ken Patera and Bob Armstrong in a round-robin final to take the belt. Taylor held the title 51 days, losing it to former world champion Terry Funk on October 12, 1980, in Columbus, Ohio, marking the first time the title changed hands outside Georgia. It also leads into another set of peculiar circumstances. Shortly after winning the TV title, Terry Funk went on tour in Japan, where he stayed into December 1980. When Funk returned to the U.S., he did not return to Georgia and went to Houston instead. At roughly the same time, Steve Keirn also went on tour in Japan, but he did return to Georgia in the middle of November. Some sources list Keirn defeating Terry Funk for the National Television Championship on November 2nd, 1980. Both Funk and Keirn had matches on November 2nd in Japan, but they were two different matches in two completely different cities. Chances are the Georgia territory knew Funk wasn't coming back, and Keirn was the most convenient person to drop the title to, as he was also in Japan. Maybe November 2nd was tossed out as the date on television. Maybe it's just the day someone pulled out of their backside and put on Wikipedia. Whatever the case, it's as good of a date as any for a Phantom match, so we'll recognize Keirn taking the title on November 2nd, 1980. While we're at it, if you don't know, a Phantom match is simply a match that never actually took place. It's been used many times in many territories to move a title from one wrestler to another, usually because the champion left the territory abruptly without dropping the title to someone else. Keirn would successfully defend the title against Mr. Seattle on November 22nd, but then lost it to Kevin Sullivan on Georgia Championship Wrestling on November 29th, in a match that saw Sullivan turn heel by attacking Keirn as he was re-entering the ring at one point. Sullivan held the title for 48 days in his second go-around before losing it to Steve Olszewski at the Omni on January 16, 1981. That started a series of short runs with the title. Steve-O held the TV title for 15 days before dropping it to a pre-Midnight Express Bobby Eaton on Georgia Championship Wrestling on January 31, 1981. Eaton only held the title for 8 days, losing it back to Steve-O at the Omni on February 8th. Steve's second go-around with the belt was a hair shorter than his first, losing the belt to Kevin Sullivan on February 21st on Georgia Championship Wrestling. 8 days later at the Omni, Sullivan dropped the title to Steve Keirn to begin Keirn's second run with the belt. Keirn defended the National TV Championship several times through March, with the last one coming on March 22nd against Kevin Sullivan in Chattanooga, Tennessee. On April 1st, 1981, Georgia Championship Wrestling made the decision to deactivate the National Television Championship. I don't know the reasoning behind this, and it seems like an odd move to make as the popularity of the television program was reaching new heights. The title remained vacant until 1983, during which time the television program changed its name to World Championship Wrestling to better convey the reach they were making on WTBS. In a tournament final held on television, the Iron Sheik defeated Ron Garvin to crown a new national television champion on May 28, 1983. Sheik and Garvin feuded over the belt into the summer of 1983, with Garvin finally winning the title to end Sheik's run at 50 days on July 17th at the Omni. Garvin's first title reign led into what is probably the most memorable feud over the title, as Legion of Doom member Jake Roberts set his sights on the National TV Championship. Roberts ended Garvin's run at 112 days, taking the title on November 6, 1983, at the Omni. Roberts kept a stranglehold on the title going into 1984, with the longest title reign in 6 years. Roberts successfully defended against stars like Pez Whatley, Mr. Wrestling 2, Brad Armstrong, Jerry Briscoe, and even Jerry Lawler, but most of his defenses were against Ron Garvin, as the man with the hands of stone desperately tried to get the title back. Finally, on April 7, 1984, Roberts' reign came to an end at 153 days. Ron Garvin defeated Roberts in the Lights Out match in Baltimore, Maryland. It was also in this match that the title officially changed names again. By request of WTBS owner Ted Turner, the title was renamed the NWA World Television Championship. Again, this was to highlight the growing reach of the TV program. Garvin held the newly dubbed World Television Championship 71 days before losing it back to Jake Roberts in a match at the Omni on June 17, 1984. However, Roberts wouldn't have the belt for long. While the title change is officially recognized, the run lasted less than 1 day, as Roberts was stripped of the title for using a foreign object in the match. The title remained vacant until a rematch between Roberts and Garvin on July 1st at the Omni, when Ron Garvin regained the TV title for a third time. Just 13 days after Garvin regained the World Television Championship, July 14, 1984, Georgia fans tuned in to World Championship Wrestling as they normally did on Saturday afternoon. Instead of seeing Gordon Solie and hearing screaming fans in the studio, they saw Freddie Miller, who wasted no time in saying, "On behalf of WTBS, it's a pleasure to welcome the World Wrestling Federation." Miller then handed things over to Vince McMahon, leaving fans stunned and confused. McMahon and the WWF had purchased the TV time slot. The name World Championship Wrestling remained, but it would now show matches from the WWF. Georgia fans would get their normal NWA wrestling back, complete with announcer Gordon Solie, but they would have to invest in an alarm clock. The Georgia territory was given a time slot early on Saturday morning, where they aired Championship Wrestling from Georgia. Most of the same wrestlers were still there, but the name of the television championship would change once again. No longer on World Championship Wrestling, the title reverted back to the NWA National Television Championship. Garvin was still recognized as the now National Television Champion and held the title until September, when he dropped the belt to Bob Roop. The exact date and location is unclear when the title changed hands, with some sources listing it as September 2nd, 1984. It's entirely possible this was a phantom match to create a feud over the belt, so we'll just go with September 2nd. Roop held the title until December, when he dropped it back to Garvin. The title change actually happened on December 27, 1984 in Cleveland, Ohio. This is often listed as December 28th in Saginaw, Michigan, but it was another case of a match being repeated and fans in both locations seeing Garvin beat Roop for the title. Again, since the one in Ohio came first, we'll recognize that one here. In either case, Garvin dropped the title back to Roop just a few days later on January 7, 1985. Roop kept the belt 97 days, losing it back to Ron Garvin on April 14, 1985. It would be the last time the National Television Championship changed hands under any name. On April 6, 1985, Mid-Atlantic owner Jim Crockett purchased the World Championship Wrestling time slot from the WWF and essentially merged the Mid-Atlantic and Georgia territories into one. The NWA Television Championship from the Mid-Atlantic territory then became the NWA World Television Championship. The National Television Championship was deactivated for the last time, leaving Ron Garvin as the last person to hold the title. It was a wild and sometimes confusing 16-year history that saw 33 different wrestlers hold the title, including 6 former and future NWA, AWA, and WWF World Champions. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more pro wrestling content, including videos on other title histories, check out the links on the end screen. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, not necessarily in that order, and I will see you next time.